This episode of What's the Recipe podcast is sponsored by Hooch Booch, a hard kombucha company that is inspired by the Roaring 20s, made with clean, real ingredients right here in Colorado with Rocky Mountain spring water. And if you use code RECIPE at drinkhoochbooch.com, you can get 20% off of all of their merch. Lucas is sporting a hat right now if you're watching on YouTube. And their non-alcoholic drink, Corpse Survivor, which is an electrolyte drink, helping you recover and raise your spirits without any spirits at all. Again, you can use code RECIPE for all merch and their Corpse Survivor, but if you're also local in Denver, you can come into Blind Tiger, which is their tap room, which is where we are right now, and you can use code RECIPE for 20% off your first drink. Cheers. Episode 3, baby.
Episode 3. Thank you for tuning in. Happy to be here.
And like we mentioned, we are in the Blind Tiger Hooch Booch tap room, and it is beautiful. Let's cheers,
shout
baby.
out Hooch Booch. Cheers. Love this spot.
I'm currently drinking one of their drag punches, which I believe you can get in the tap room, but also my favorite flavor is Rum Runner. It's magnificent.
Yes.
Anyway,
how legit is this spot look?
I know. If you guys aren't watching on YouTube,
so official right now.
If you guys aren't watching on YouTube, you almost have to stop listening and go watch on YouTube, because this vibe is a vibe.
Yeah, and this is our new home. So if you watch the first couple episodes, we were in our house in our little dungeon of a podcast room.
It was literally a storage room.
But now we are in the Blind Tiger Hooch Booch tap room every Monday. Let's get it.
So today we are talking about how to spice things up. And if you're listening and you're like, okay, well, I don't really need to spice things up in my relationship, or I don't need to spice things up in my sex life. First of all, yeah, you do, because everyone does. But also, second of all, we're also going to be talking about spicing things up, not in terms of a relationship, not in terms of sex life, but in your everyday life, in your career, in your relationships that are not romantic, in your relationship with your kids, in your day-to-day. How do you actually keep the mundane moments exciting? How do you get through the hard days in work? So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, I think every aspect in life could use a little spice on that John, you know? So
Your favorite thing to say is on that John. What is that John?
It's that John.
Who is John?
It's the thing. It's like on that John. But yeah, I think, creating some spicy tendencies in all aspects of life is a good thing. Keeps things exciting, keeps things fresh. And today we'll kind of talk about couple different areas in our life as a couple, as parents, how we spice things up.
And I actually want to kick off this episode before we get into our tips and what we have found that works for us, and giving you guys all of our little ingredients to our recipe with this, is I asked on Instagram what your tips are, and I thought it would be fun to get you guys involved, but also to just read them off together and chat about them.
Yeah, let's do it. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, so the first question that I asked you guys was, what's your best tip for spicing things up in your relationship? And the first one that I want to talk about is, someone said surprises of any kind.
I think surprises are great. Surprises are fun. You know, it's we
don't do them though.
No, we don't.
You haven't surprised me in forever. I haven't surprised you in forever.
Yeah, we don't do a lot. We don't incorporate a lot of surprises.
But do you know why? I think this kind of stems off of our terrible track record with holidays and birthdays and events. It's like we can't even keep up with planned shit. When are we going to have time to surprise each other?
Because surprising someone is a lot of thought. Yeah. Right? It's a lot of preparation.
The last time you surprised me was our engagement.
I think it was.
2021. Huh? Yeah. And that was a beautiful, smooth, perfectly orchestrated surprise.
Yeah, that surprise was me inviting all of my good friends, all of your good friends, to an engagement party that we had at your parents' house. But no, I think surprises are definitely something that should be incorporated in a relationship. I think that's a amazing example of how to spice things up in someone's relationship or in your relationship is incorporating more surprises. Because, I mean, I'm a effing sucker for a good surprise, and it screams like I love you, and it screams I listen to like the small things, you know? So I think that's a great example of spicing things up, is surprising one another.
And I think like we never want to come on this podcast and again like act like we're experts or gurus. Like we're taking tips from you guys too. Like that's a great tip that I'm going to think about more now.
100%. Yeah, it's going to make me think about our relationship, and yeah, I need to surprise you more.
Well, I do too, but I think even for people listening, I feel like it doesn't have to be this like grand thing where it's like I'm picking you up for a weekend and we're going jetting off in somewhere. It could be literally like me just bringing you down some food when you least expected it to work, or like me getting you a cup of ice with your coffee because you like that, or something small, you know,
or like
coming home with flowers,
or a nice expensive gift is always great too.
God, I'm telling you guys, he's more high maintenance than I am.
But I think, yeah, little surprises like writing each other notes maybe, and because I know you like that kind of stuff too. Something I used to do a lot more than I do now, for sure. I think, like you just said, it's hard for us to just keep up with our present.
Yeah.
Taking the time to surprise the other person just doesn't come up as much. But whoever wrote that and gave you that advice, love it.
What would you say is like your perfect surprise?
I'm not sure. Probably something to do with like food, or something to do with, I love being a father and I love my kids, but something probably like an excursion
alone.
Or not necessarily alone.
Like with
you.
us too is what I mean.
Yeah.
Like alone away from the kids.
Yeah. I think like, hey, I got a babysitter today and we're going to do this. That would probably be a great surprise for me. What about you?
I think mine is what you said about like the writing me a little letter, or writing me like a sticky note, or even just like coming home with flowers randomly, or coming home with like the other day when you let me sleep in and you took the kids to Dutch Bros and to get like some things for,
I surprised you.
And then you came back, and you came back and you brought me a coffee. I actually don't love my coffee like handed to me in bed, because like I need to get up and brush my teeth first and have a breakfast and then drink my coffee, but I like it being delivered to me in bed. And then me being like, can you actually just put this back in the fridge?
You like the act of the delivery?
I do like that.
And you're like, can you just run that back?
It's like I'm in a movie and I'm like, and cut. Put it back. But
it's the thought that counts.
I do like the littler things, honestly. I think I'm a little bit more like,
is it littler or smaller?
Littler. I don't know. Whatever. Okay.
Surprises are great. I want to just give surprises their glory, because if you're listening to this, surprise the person you love.
Somebody said spicy talk throughout the day, but then she also followed up by saying not texting much throughout the day, but having deep conversations in the evening, which is something that we always talk about. Yeah. But I think it's interesting and a good tip that she was like, and a little spicy talk throughout the day.
But I think we could relate a lot to that. I think that is one of the ways we spice our relationship up, is we don't talk a lot during the day. You know, we have a lot of shit going on. We don't talk as much. We don't keep up with each other as much during the day. It's not like a texting back and forth. What are you doing? Tell me where you are, this, that, and the other, because we like sitting down at the end of the day and having that deep connection or conversation regarding like what happened, or because I think a lot of couples can oversaturate their communication, and it just makes things bland a lot of the time, or that just leads to a really unhealthy expectation of you should always be talking to me, or I should always know where you are at all times. Like, that's a little too much, and I think that could lead to some weird arguments or some weird attachment issues, where I think that's how we spice things up on a regular basis, is, you know, giving each other space.
And we don't text like ever, because Lucas works from home and I'm home as well, and so we don't have a reason to.
Just yell from.
But I think when we do text is when you go on work trips, and I send you a little nude every now and then. When you're on work trips, we definitely do a little spicy texting.
Yeah, we definitely do. I wouldn't say you send me like nudes, but you'll just send me like.
I'll send you an ass shot.
Yeah, you'd send me an ass shot.
What else do you want to see? A pussy pic?
Pussy pics all day for sure. Come on. But yeah, you definitely are good at, when I'm on a work trip, firing me up with some verbal text messages that, you know, definitely make me
Are you getting hard just thinking
feel
about
good
it?
inside.
Okay, the last one before I move on.
This is not supposed to be a raunchy podcast, by the way. We're serious, okay? This is serious.
The next thing before I move on is, or the last thing, is being active together as much as possible. Getting outside and sweating together seems to help.
Yeah, I think
love
that's
that one.
I think that's a really good one, especially couples who used to be athletes. I think that's a really, really good way to spice things up. And I think, like, watching your partner work out or like getting after it and like getting in that zone of working out is super hot. Something we don't do at all, actually, because Amanda will not go to the gym with me. She refuses.
We have done it many times in the past. I think the only reason we don't do it now is because I love going to a workout class with you.
We used to do like Orange Theory and stuff together.
When we were in Tampa, we went to camp and I loved doing that with you.
Yeah, that was
super
fun.
But I think the thing is that if Lucas is going to the gym, I have to stay home with the kids and vice versa.
I want to see you back squat, baby.
But like that's something we definitely I want to try to do more with you. Well, I just joined like a woman-only gym, so we can't do it there.
Crazy. How sexist is that? Amanda just joined a woman-only gym.
We can talk about all of the things that are men's only. Moving on. So this is how do you keep your day-to-day / work life exciting and fun, okay? Someone says gratitude, which I think is actually a great tip, is like, she says, but seriously though, the more gratitude I have, the more excited I am for the day. I really like that because I actually find that if I like write down the things that I'm grateful for, it doesn't really do it for me. But if I say the things I'm grateful for out loud, like every single time I used to drive Lennox to daycare, we used to say our gratefuls. And when I say them out loud, it actually makes me like so much more excited for the day.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just the difference between keeping it in your head and verbally communicating it. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great way to spice things up in like your everyday work life is being grateful for the job that you have maybe and for the money that you make, being able to provide for your lifestyle. It's something I should probably do more. I mean, just being in sales. What do you mean,
like focusing on the things that you have versus don't have, Lucas Fowler?
Yeah, it's probably, that could probably help. But I am, being more grateful for also like the coworkers that you have. Like if you have a badass coworker that you just love to hang out with on a daily basis, like just thank them for being super cool and being someone who you look forward to seeing at work. I think that's a great way to spice things up. But yeah, and I think it's super hard in sales because sales is so cutthroat. It's like the highs are so high and the lows are so low. It's really good to remind yourself that, you may not even, you're lucky to even have a job at the end of the day sometimes, right? So I think it's a really good perspective. I do too. It's a really good tip that like is free. Anybody can do it. And it really does change your mindset, change your attitude. And so the next thing, a lot of people were saying kind of the more similar thing, which is like rewards. Someone says plan fun things on the weekends so you have something to look forward to. Someone says you make it a little game and give myself a little reward every time I do something that like I set my mind to or whatever. And just like doing little things throughout the week that like are rewards or planning a weekend as a reward. 100%. Absolutely. It's like a reward. Google search all the music venues in your city, and if you see anybody that you really like listening to that's coming, like get yourself a fucking ticket. Like go and see them. Like that's one of my favorite things to do. I'm a weekend warrior through and through. Work hard Monday through Friday. On the weekends, I don't want Amanda to plan anything. Like I want to have a fun family day, or I want to go out to dinner, or I want to buy Rockies baseball tickets and go to the Rockies game. My handcuffs are pink if you're asking. Just kidding. No, I just think I really resonate to that because, it's especially being in sales, it's really hard work during the week. So having those little events or things that you kind of get for yourself is a great way to spice up like your life. And then the last one, someone says things that are just health, like cooking, cleaning, and lifting throughout the week to kind of keep it exciting. Yeah, I think that's great. I think I do that on a regular basis. And I think there's a difference if you don't
move your body. If you don't nourish your body properly, you're not going to just show up best, you know?
Yeah, cooking is definitely my happy place. My happy place is definitely in the kitchen. After a day of work, you know, cooking in the kitchen for the fam. I love cooking. That's definitely a passion of mine for
What
sure.
do you think your favorite meal is to actually cook?
I love whipping up a good pasta.
Ugh,
you know?
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I love whipping up like a nice pasta sauce.
But you like a mushroom pasta.
I like every kind of pasta.
You like a mushroom
bacon. I love
bacon.
a grandma's bolognese. I love a good mushroom cream pasta.
What is the one that she makes with the lamb?
That is the old famous red spaghetti.
Okay,
there.
that's my favorite. I like that one.
Is
that the red spaghetti?
Have you had red spaghetti?
Lucas fucking Fowler. You ask me this every single time red spaghetti is brought up.
That's
We've been
crazy.
together for 10 years.
Yeah, if you're a fan of food out there, if you know what lamb shank is, you essentially braise it. So you just stick it in the oven with a bunch of other stuff for hours and hours, and it pulls right off the bone. And my grandma
So
would
good.
create this like tomato sauce that she would cook with the braised lamb shanks. She'd cook it for like 8 hours, and then we'd have pasta. It's just the greatest thing ever.
Do you think that's where your love of pasta stemmed from?
100%.
Yeah.
Us Fowlers are huge pasta eaters.
Yeah, you are.
100%. And then I love cooking a breakfast, a big old breakfast.
Oh my gosh.
With your eggs, with your potatoes, with your bacon and sausage and your
Mother's Day breakfast that you made me last year was like top notch.
Yeah,
it was
that's
like
my
smoked
favorite.
salmon, avocado, eggs,
Yeah.
bacon and sausage.
Yeah, I like a breakfast with a whole lot of choices.
Because you love a buffet.
Yeah,
Is that what
exactly.
you're gonna say?
Yeah, that's how I would spice. If I'm gonna spice my life up,
I'm gonna go to the Holiday Inn. No,
Not
actually, not the Holiday
Hell
Inn.
no, the Intercontinental Buffet.
The continental.
Yeah,
the intercontinental.
The Continental Buffet. No, I am a whore for a good buffet.
Like the one that we had in Vienna.
That shit fires me up.
The one that we had in Vienna.
Yeah, we were in Vienna, Austria, staying at this hotel. Man, that breakfast buffet was outrageous. And
Yeah.
I'm talking, I take full advantage of that shit. I'm getting 6-7 plates. But I'm not, the best thing about a buffet, or my technique, you don't put everything on one plate. You course it out. Like, you treat yourself. You're like, I'm going to have like a 6 or 7 course breakfast right now. You know,
And
you
then that
start with
leads
the
to
small
6 or
things.
7 course shit later
Yeah,
on.
it starts. Yeah, that leads to a very gassy day, but the breakfast is so worth it.
Okay, so I want to touch on our tips for spicing things up in love and relationships, and then we'll get into kind of working
Sex
in daily.
all the time, or at least where you can fit it in, if you can fit it in.
Okay, are
But
we
that's-
just rolling with the tips, or are we
Yeah.
like okay? Are
Just
we
the
rolling?
tip. Just the tip, baby, please.
Okay, so I really want to talk about how do you spice up your sex life, but really, I think the way that you spice up your sex life is by having
Yeah, you gotta
sex.
have sex first
So
to spice up
how
your
do
sex
you
life.
get to sex? Because I think so often, you get into a relationship, whether you have kids or not, or you don't, life gets busy, things get in the way, schedules change. It kind of sometimes falls by the wayside. And you're not having sex as much as you used to in your honeymoon phase or whatnot. So if you are in a lull, or you are just kind of wanting to have more some consistency, here are our tips for spicing up your sex life. Number one, above all, is you have to like each other. You have to be attracted to one another.
Definitely, I think that. I mean,
and don't come at me being like, what do you mean I'm not attracted or to my partner or like him? Like, I chose him. Yeah, but I think that you have to stay attracted to your partner. Do you know what I mean?
definitely.
And you have to continue choosing to like them and making connections.
Yeah, you have to want to have sex with them, right? It's not just, oh, we are in a relationship and that's what we do.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing better than actually wanting to climb your partner like a fucking tree. It's like, and I think that's really important. I think it depends on your sex drive too, as a couple or as an individual. And
Well,
I think
we'll get in there. We'll get into that.
Okay, I got you. What are your thoughts on
Liking each other and being attracted to each other? I think that my biggest tip here, and I even said it in a TikTok, is you have to witness your partner in their element, because you fell in love with your partner when they were an individual doing their thing, having their passions, being with their boys or their girls, and they were confident, they were sexy, they were attractive. That's why you were attracted to them. That's why you liked them.
Right.
And so I think if you're in a lull, like, talk to your partner about doing more of their thing, having their own individuality again and bringing that back in, because that's the most attractive thing to me.
Yeah,
when I
think
see you with your boys, that's attractive to me.
Yeah, and I think a good way to have that conversation is like, you know, remember when you used to do this, or I really think it's sexy when you do this, you know, rather than like, you don't do this anymore or something like that. Just kind of leading it with a compliment, like, hey, when you do this or when you used to do this, I think that's super sexy. And then just kind of leaving it there and letting your partner pick up the slack, you know? And I think that's a big part of our way of keeping it spicy is we do like each other a lot as well. And we're not afraid to tell each other that. I'm very good at making you feel beautiful.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Because I'm very vocal about it.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe... And I think that is a really good leeway of us wanting to have sex with each other, because I'm just like my father. I watched my father growing up with my mother. Like, he stayed all gas, no brakes on the compliments.
Yeah.
You know, when you look good to me, I let you know on a very regular basis.
Yeah. I think I also do that too. Whenever you're like, you look really hot, I'm like, you look really hot. You look sexy.
I don't think you've said you look really hot, but you said.
I literally said that to you the other day.
You're more so like, you should wear more hats because you're going bald. No, I'm just kidding. No, you don't. No, you do a very good job at.
I do.
You do a very good job at making.
Okay, here's
me
the thing,
feel
and this is our other tip, so I'll get into it in a second. My love language is not words of affirmation, so sometimes I struggle with the words of affirmation thing, but I would not sit here and say that I say that you're sexy or I say that you're hot if I actually didn't. I do.
I'm just pulling your chains, baby. You definitely do. You make me feel sexy on a very regular basis.
You sure about that?
Yes.
Well, I don't think you'd be in this relationship if that wasn't the case.
I think that's a way that us as a couple spice things up.
Yeah.
Are we gonna talk to other couples about how they have sex and shit?
What are you talking about?
Is that a thing for our podcast?
What do you mean? Oh, like asking other couples when we actually interview them?
Yeah.
Why not? We have conversations about sex all the time with people.
Yeah, I guess we do.
Of course. I think that's the other thing is like, ooh, this is actually something that I think contributes. So I was raised in a little suburban town, pretty conservative. My parents were pretty conservative. Like, they never really sat me down and had the sex talk. Lucas is raised with two European parents who, like, it's such a sex positive household.
Yeah, sex was everything.
And I
in my
think
household.
that was actually really helpful for me, because Lucas was like, I lost my virginity to him. He was my first date, first boyfriend. And like, again, my parents never really broached that conversation with me. And so whenever we started becoming sexual, you were really open with like the PDA and all the things. And I think that made me feel really comfortable.
Taught this woman everything she knows.
Is that your biggest flex?
Oh yeah, it is. I love that. No, I think I was raised around a very sex positive, out in the open family, and it has its pros and it also has its cons. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I think when we met at a very young age, I may have surprised you on how forward I was on a regular basis.
Yeah. But I think, again, like, you've always led with the words of affirmation, and like that's very much how you like make me feel loved. But also I think a big thing with us is like we like each other. We like to spend quality time with each other. We like I was joking with the handcuffs because like we do like to have family weekends where we're just like hanging out with each other, and my friends are like, bitch, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm hanging out with my husband. Like, we love being together and doing things as a family. And I think that's really like, that's a really great way to spice things up, is just by spending quality time with each other because you like each other.
Yeah.
And then also being individuals to make each other feel attracted to you.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to speak up, you know.
Well, that leads to the second thing is communication. Or no, love languages, which I think we kind of hit on, but I think is important to note here because I think you're not going to feel connected or loved and then therefore want to have sex if you don't know how to meet that need.
Yeah. I think the more you listen to us, the more you'll just understand how vital love languages are to us and how much we actually like respect the entire conversation around love languages. And I think when we have couples on this podcast, we're gonna ask them what their love language is and see if they've ever even had a conversation about that amongst each other.
Yeah.
Because it's something we take really seriously, and I think it's the key to a happy and fulfilling relationship. Is one, knowing your love language is more important than knowing your partner's love language first and foremost, because you need to know how you feel loved, and you need to know how you feel special. That way you can communicate that to your partner. And you need to also, obviously on the opposite side of the coin, you need to understand how your partner feels loved and how they expect you to make them happy. And I think that's something we do really well. Mm-hmm. And it could be a small example of, I'll even, if Amanda and I are going through a tough, or if we're having a little argument.
We're going through a tough.
Is that even a thing? Or we're going through an argument, or tiff, yes. And we have like an argument. Sometimes I'll just flat out say like, babe, like, what's my love language? Just think about that for a second. And sometimes Amanda will have to remind me what her love language is. And it makes me stop and think, and, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's really what they're asking for.
Yeah. Yeah, because if there's really conflict when it comes to like not connecting or not being intimate, it really comes down to you're not meeting each other's needs.
Right.
And so what is my need? Mine is quality time and acts of service. What is Lucas's? Words of affirmation and physical touch. How can we meet in the middle? How can you satisfy one of mine? How can I satisfy one of yours? And it's compromise.
Yeah.
But I think moral of that story is like you can't be turned on if you don't know what turns you on.
So spice up your relationship by knowing what turns you on and communicating that to your person.
Yeah. The next thing that I want to mention that has been really awesome for me to know, I don't know as much of you, and I would love to get your opinion, but knowing my libido based on my menstrual cycle, like tracking my menstrual cycle, which is something that I actually started doing after I had Ellis, has been so game changing for me, because there would be so many moments in like the course of 10 years of our relationship where you're like, you're wanting to have sex more than I am.
Where my libido is at 100 all day, every day. Yeah. That's still the case.
But then I'm a woman and I have a 28-day hormone cycle. You have a 24-hour, bitch. And that means that there are 14 days within my cycle where I am plummeting. My energy levels are plummeting. My libido is plummeting. I don't want to have sex, or I sometimes don't even want to be touched. So it's helpful for me to know that, because then I have a reason, right? I have an explanation of like, oh, I'm not attracted to my partner, or, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just in my luteal phase, and that's okay. And it's really cool because every single time I have my period and then I'm in my follicular phase and my ovulation, I notice that libido coming back and I'm like, I want to have sex. So it's helpful information to know because it helps me communicate that to you.
Right. For sure. I think I can definitely tell which stage you are in your
What am I now?
In your hormonal cycle. What do you put me on the spot.
What phase am I in now?
Are you in the follicular phase?
No.
No.
Do you know what follicular is?
No, I
What's
don't.
follicular?
I really couldn't tell
you. Wait, no. Hold on. We're going to do a test. Okay. Menstruation is... What is menstruation?
I don't know.
That phase. Menstruation.
Is that when you want to have sex?
No, menstruation. Like what's happening when I'm menstruating.
Is that when you're on your period?
Yeah, I'm bleeding. And then what's the one that falls after that, where my sex drive is getting higher. My energy levels are increasing. I'm building follicles.
I don't know.
I'm building follicles.
Follicular.
Yeah. And then
thanks for the context clues.
And then ovulation is when my egg drops, and that's my
menstrual, follicular, ovulation.
That's my peak when I want to have sex. And then luteal, which is what I'm in now. Okay. Where luteal, I don't want to have sex.
Right.
But I think I've actually been a little bit more higher sex drive this luteal phase. But
well, I think it all, because you weren't always on, like you didn't have a regular period for 95% of our 10-year relationship.
Yeah. Because I was off and on birth control, and then also
as of like a year, you've really been regularly on your period, and I've been noticing the changes. So it's kind of like ebbs and flows, and I can like look forward to, when you're in a specific phase, it's kind of just like, oh, I just have to wait a couple more days and like she'll be climbing me like a tree. Like it's okay. You know? And then there's another phase where you're not on birth control right now where I'm like, yo, you need to get away from me, honestly, because I'm not trying to have a third kid right now.
First of all, that never happens.
But that's where condoms come into play.
No, but this man will be like, I don't want to. Like, can I just, no. I'm the one who always says, put on a fucking condom.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
But
condoms suck.
I think.
But they are appropriate, ladies and gentlemen, listeners
are.
out there. If you have sex without a condom, you're going to have a baby.
So I think.
Take that from someone who's had 2 unexpected children.
I think, though, that is a helpful tip for women and men, because I think a lot of like arguments and conflict comes from like, well, why don't you even have sex with me? And I think a lot of the time women are just in their luteal phase and their hormones are just plummeting. They don't have energy. They don't have a sex drive.
Yeah.
But then once they increase, then you're fine.
And I think square one of that is women who are listening, get educated on your hormonal cycle, right? Is that good verbiage?
Yep.
And then also teach your man what that looks like, what that means, what the symptoms may be in each phase, so you can help us understand as well.
And ladies, make him listen with his eyes.
Yes. And maybe ask, like, if I'm in my menstrual, follicular, ovulation, what was the last one? Luteal. Maybe you could be like, hey, when I'm in my luteal phase and I am not trying to have sex with you, what are other things that would please you that would maybe...
Or like, what are other ways we can feel intimate?
Yeah, what are other ways that, you know...
Because to be honest, in my luteal phase, like I don't even want to be touched. So It's like, what are other ways we can feel connected or intimate, you know?
For sure.
Okay. The last one before we move on to like how we spice things up in our career or work life is one-on-one time outside of kids, or if you don't have kids, like outside of your daily routine.
Yeah, that's definitely how we spice things up for sure. I think one-on-one time, especially right now in our life with having a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, is really important to us. And that's a big factor on how we try to spice our relationship up, is putting our relationship first at the end of the day. That may be hard for some people. It's like the kids always come first. Like that's called divorce in the future, you know? I think that's something we're pretty good at doing, is putting our relationship before our kids when it matters, because we can't be the parents that we want to be if we're not incredibly in love with each other. And that comes with that quality time.
I think some people are going to not agree with that, and that's totally fine. You can. I think, and your parents did this really well. I think in some aspects my parents do this now, being empty nesters, but it's like what happens when all the kids are out of the house and you don't have, you know, that sole focus, and you lose your identity and you don't have a connection because all this time you've been prioritizing your kids and not focusing on each other or leaving each other on the back burner.
Yeah.
So again, like to each his own, everyone's different, but I think that a key to a successful, long, happy marriage is by prioritizing your relationship. And don't get me wrong, there are moments where like we have to put our relationship on the back burner and focus on career or focus on the kids. But more often than not, we're coming back to each other and saying, no, we're first.
Yeah, and I'm like, yo, you need to get a babysitter because I need a date night with you, you know, or yeah. I mean, I have no shame with saying that is, I firmly stand by, that is probably the one piece of advice I would take to the grave for couples that have children, is put your relationship first, because in my opinion, that creates better parents, that creates, you know, a deeper love for your child.
And
when
role
you can,
model.
Yeah. When you can look at your child and be like, not only do I love you, but I love your mother or I love your father so much. That's my ride or die. Like that, you are 50% a better parent. You are 50% a better parent right then and there. If you're like, damn, your mom or your dad, it just rocks my world, because that just makes you a happier person at the end of the day. And that doesn't happen unless you really have a solid bond and put your relationship first.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And again, if you don't have kids, I think just like making it a point to go and do things that you don't typically do. Cause I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys live with each other and you just get into this like monotonous day-to-day routine. Go do things, like go
book that weird pottery class.
Yeah. Go to a comedy show.
Dance lesson. If you haven't,
Zumba
by the way,
class.
if you're not, is Zumba still a thing?
Yeah, 100%.
That's crazy.
Pole dancing.
If you, by
I'd
the
love
way,
to get you on a pole.
I'll fucking throw
Clap
some,
them cheeks.
I'll throw some cheeks back on a pole. By the way, if you're listening to this and you like comedy and you haven't done a comedy show date with your significant other, look up your local comedy store or comedy,
Facts.
venue and book you some tickets. That's one of my favorite dates to do with Amanda. We haven't done it in too long, or we haven't done it
in
recently, but I love it.
Yeah.
It's a great way to spice things up.
Okay. Spicing things up in your career. I think I kind of want to just like rattle off a few that I have, and I would love your take on them. But I think the first thing is whenever I don't feel like my career or my work life is spicy, and again, I'm a mindset and wellness coach, also a podcast host and content creator. So I do a lot of creative things. And for me, the biggest thing is like getting into a creative rut or not feeling inspired. So for me to feel inspired, which I also feel like will also resonate with you, because I think inspiration and motivation can kind of go hand in hand, is I have to disconnect. I have to be kind of alone in solitude, because a lot of my inspiration comes from when I am alone, when I have conscious time with myself to see what inspires me, what's lighting me up, and not be inundated by all of the noise of social media and TV and podcasts and all of this bullshit. Like I have to have that disconnection time, unplugging and hearing my own thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think the way I like to kind of spice my days up is if I'm not in client meetings, or if I know I'm just kind of sitting down doing a lot of like admin work, I blast some good listening music or some good jam bands and just have fun that way. That's a big thing I like to do too.
The next thing is I will build my joy list, my joy toolkit, which is what I do a lot with my clients, especially in my group program, is make everyone build their joy toolkit. It's so hard to say, joy toolkit.
Say that 5 times fast.
Joy toolkit, no, can't do it.
Joy toolkit, joy toolkit, joy toolkit, joy toolkit. That was so close. You really gotta hit the mouth like.
Are you doing ASMR right now?
But yeah, back to my point, I forgot to add, if you don't have a Bluetooth speaker in your office, get you a Bluetooth speaker in your office.
We're past that.
Jam some tunes. I know, I just forgot to add that little piece.
Okay.
But yes, Joy Toolkit, something that I do not know about. What is this?
Okay, so I do this a lot with people who are trying to look for that passion, that thing that they want to do, whether it's an entrepreneurship or like transition out of a corporate career or transition out of being a stay-at-home mom and do something else. And so I always tell people, start with what brings you joy. Like figure out what are the things that actually make you feel joyful. And whenever I need to spice things up in my work life, I always fall back on, okay, what are the things that bring me joy? And a lot of that is like being out in the community or being social with friends. And so for me, what I will do if I'm feeling uninspired or I'm feeling like I need to spice things up, I will go get out into the community. I love the Den in Denver. I get to talk to other moms. I get to see what everybody else is doing. I get to be inside of their heads and I get to hear what they're struggling with, and it gives me inspiration. But then also I love hanging out with my friends and just chatting it up. I have a good friend, Ashley, who like 5 minutes turns into 5 hours really quick. And I think having people like that who can just like spitball with you and like go back and forth and ping pong, it really, really helps me.
Yeah, and I work from home, so it's interesting, and it's sometimes really hard to spice things up in my day-to-day work life when I work from home, because I don't get that camaraderie of being in the flesh with colleagues. So what I love to do, especially when I don't have a lot of client-facing calls, is go to like the coffee shop, or go to like a local setting where I am involved and around a lot more people. And I'll honestly notice a huge production change for me personally, because when I'm at my house in my office, I tend to, like, in between calls or when I get bored, I tend to scroll on my phone a lot more than I should. But when I'm in this coffee shop setting, or if I'm in a setting that has a lot of other people around, I work so much harder. You know, I'm so much more involved in my work. I'm not exactly why that's the case, but that's a big way I spice things up for sure.
Well, it's an environment change, because the reason you scroll on your phone is because of habit. Your cue is I'm bored. Your behavior is, and reward is, pick up my phone and scroll. So when you're in a different environment and you don't have that cue of boredom because you're a people, or not a people pleaser, a people watcher.
Well, I am also a people pleaser.
But a people watcher. So you're getting that stimulation of watching other people and like being in an energy of other people. That cue of being bored is not there anymore.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, rather than kind of scrolling, I'll just look up and just people watch for 45 seconds or like 2 minutes, and then I'm good. My cup is full, and now back to work. I think I'm going to go to a coffee shop tomorrow, actually.
By all means.
Yeah,
So my last tip for you guys for spicing things up in your work life, the biggest tip for me, honestly, is that whenever I'm not feeling spicy, whenever I'm not feeling inspired, I always remind myself that my reason for doing this is bigger than my excuse. And I think that having kids really gave me this perspective, but I have a goal. I have a dream. I have a place that I'm working towards, a lifestyle that I'm working towards. And at the end of the day, when I'm not feeling spicy, or things are not feeling inspired, or I'm not feeling motivated, that reason is bigger than any excuse that I could give to not show up.
We trying to be rich. No, that's powerful. I mean, and it's a great thing to remind yourself, you know, because I think day to day you can really look at your life, you know, like you're looking at like
it's meaningless
microscope.
Yeah.
But if you back it up and look at it like a telescope, all the things that you're doing on these weird, hard days are going to affect your future 3 years down the line.
Yes. You are always moving the needle closer or farther away from your goal. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that taking the next step is so much better than taking the biggest step. You know what I mean? So it's one thing to like have this vision, have this goal, have this dream, but I don't necessarily go throughout my days being like, I have this big goal, I have this big dream, I need to achieve it. I go throughout my days being like, what is one thing that I can do today that moves the needle closer to that thing? And if I wake up and I'm not feeling productive, if I'm in my luteal phase, usually I'm not feeling inspired or I'm not feeling motivated, I will literally just be like, this is my goal, this is my dream. I know this is what it is. That's my reason. It's bigger than all of these excuses. So what can I do today that's going to help me work towards it?
Right. Chip it up, you know, just making chips.
Chip.
And I say that because I think of like when we were in Rome, when we had a chance to go visit Rome, was it Michelangelo?
Yeah. Who painted,
but also sculpted like the Virgin Mary statue of like Jesus and Virgin Mary's. And it's like he was first and foremost, he was a sculptor. Mm-hmm. That's what he wanted to at least be known for.
Then he got
not
known for a painter, yeah.
He wanted to be known for a sculptor. And he didn't have his beautiful sculpting works of art overnight, right? Mm-hmm. Every day he just chipped away. And that's the way to kind of look at it. You like that?
Hashtag Michelangelo on this bitch.
Shout out my boy Michelangelo.
Hashtag Michelangelo on this bitch, though.
Right.
On this booch.
On this booch.
Okay, so I think those are our tips for how to spice it up in your career and also how to spice it up in your sex life and your relationship and your love.
Right, and I think it's more so how we spice things up in our careers and our sex life, because we don't have the answers to everything, but this is an episode on how it works for us as a couple and individuals. And
I also loved all of the tips that you guys gave us because truthfully, they're really good reminders that, again, like, this is what's the recipe. Chew on what resonates, spit out the rest. We're not wanting to create a platform, create a conversation with all of these like right answers. These are things that you are able to use your discernment on and say, that resonates with me, but you know what? That doesn't. And that's cool with us. That's what we want.
There's no right answer to anything. I mean, people, I mean, I'm sure if you asked every single person how they make a bolognese or how they make one specific dish, they will each of them tell you
Or how they cut an onion.
Right. There's only a couple ways you can do that. But everyone's going to have a different recipe on the same dish, right? And that's what we're trying to get out of this podcast and discover for ourselves is all the different ways and everyone's different recipe on how they got to where they are or how they cultivated something that they've created. And, you know, I know this is episode 3 and it's been a lot of us, but in the next few episodes, we really want to start talking to other people and exploring other people's recipes to some of the things that we've covered today and in the past couple of episodes. I think you do have a couple more with just us as well.
A few more episodes. I think like maybe 2 more with just us. And then we're going to be interviewing more people, which I'm excited about because we're going to be getting their takes. And again, like this is for you to experiment, to have your kind of mind opened to other ways of doing things. Because again, there's not one singular recipe to success. There's so many different ones. And it's about what resonates with you. What is your specific recipe? Because that's what's going to lead you to your success. So with that being said, follow us on Instagram at What's the Recipe Pod, on TikTok, What's the Recipe Pod, and this episode's 86.
86.